Now, ITV is coming under fire for its continued association with Philip Schofield after he was ousted from his role as presenter on its flagship show this morning. Phil is set to host the Soap Awards next week, with the broadcaster fearing his involvement could spark a backlash. And Woke ITV is yet to confirm if Phil will continue to host Dancing on Ice when the show televises in January next year. Now, former Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries, who until a few months ago was tasked with handling the government's broadcasting policy, slammed ITV for how it's dealt with the Schofield fallout in a bombshell column today in the Daily Mail. Dorries wrote, "As for ITV, it looks to me as though the channel was most concerned with protecting Schofield's reputation and its own for as long as possible. And there are still many questions to ask about this case, not just of Schofield and what he might have done that could have led to his departure. There are also questions for ITV executives and this morning editor Martin Frizzell. What have they known about Schofield? For how long? And why are they letting him host other prestigious shows?" Rebecca Reid, I thought this was a very powerful intervention from the former Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries, and I think she makes a very fair point, don't you?
I think it's a very difficult conversation because, as she speculates about, it's unknown, right? These are internal conversations. We don't know exactly how the relationship with Phil and Holly broke down. We don't exactly know what's going on. But I can see that if he's not allowed to host this morning, then it doesn't make sense that he'd be able to host anything else. And I sort of feel like he, and I don't think he will, should have the dignity to be like, do you know what, I had a lot of great years. I had the best job in television, and now I'm going to tastefully step back. He's made a lot of money. He could do something else, but I think he's going to make their life really difficult.
Well, he's furious.
Yeah, and I can see why, but because he's the kind of person who gets furious. Right? But you'll notice that when, and I'm sorry to bring him up, Amanda, but when Piers went from Good Morning Britain...
Piers Morgan.
Yes.
Why are you sorry to bring that up?
Because...
Your ex-TV.
Because he's your ex-boyfriend.
It wasn't like my boyfriend.
Well...
it was more serious than that.
Yeah, much more serious than a boyfriend. Boyfriend's a tenner penny. But you'll notice that the people who worked below him and around him did not line up to kick him. And here you are seeing that people are lining up to take shots at Phil because he hurt people. I think I've heard he wasn't very nice to people on the way up.
No, he wasn't. John Sargent, I mean, you know Philip Schofield, good guy, bad guy?
Well, I amazingly was on the Soap Awards. I once gave an award in the Soap Awards, so I can't say we're that close as people, but he was on it, of course, and I thought he was pretty cold and totally lacking any interest in me and what I might be doing.
That's outrageous.
But that's consistent.
You can't believe it, can you?
That is just unbelievable.
But every single person who works for Philip Schofield says this.
On the serious point, where I think Nadine Dorries is wrong is the assumption that somehow we must know, we must be told. This doesn't really work with a private company and someone they employ. The assumption that it's all sort of like a public office, you know, it's like being in the cabinet or being Prime Minister. I think people are getting confused about this.
OK, but what about morally, though? Because ITV have painted this picture to us for such a long time of ITV being happy families. We were meant to buy into this concept.
Of course, that's what you've got. But that's what you've got.
And actually, it's a nest of vipers. They hate each other. They're backstabbing each other. So we don't have a legal right to know, but surely as viewers we have a moral right to know.
No, because in fact the ITV have got to keep their mitts up. They're in difficulty over this. They were astonished at the way that people turned off the programme. They thought the publicity would be good for the programme, good for them. Now I think they're obviously in some disarray over this. But the idea that what they should do is to make some pronouncement, some definitive pronouncement about what he did and what they thought of it, well, that seems to me like a crazy thing for a media company to do. I'd be horrified if I was working for ITV and I thought any moment they might turn around and say, well, actually, let's tell that I worked for them, I was their political editor. I don't want them at the end of my time to say, now, John Sargent, we can now tell you the truth. He was appalling, or he was this or that. No, you want a certain amount of loyalty even when you're leaving them.
But I think the thing about them is that for a lot of people, they're more influential than politicians. They're in your home every day. They feel like family members to a lot of people who watch it religiously. So people feel like he's kind of abandoned them and they want.
But it was always a farce. The whole thing was always a farce. We all knew what Philip Schofield was about. But Amanda Platell, I've been talking this week about how it's fascinating that no one high profile wants to speak out and defend Philip, but I believe you do.
Well, Dan, I've got to say, the guy hasn't committed any crimes. I'm a big fan of Nadine's, and, you know, I respect her opinion in the paper today. But I think the real snake in the grass here has been Holly and the people behind her.
Really?
And they went out after him. I'm not saying he's an angel. I've never worked for him. I've done a few shows, but basically, Holly was the one. She came, and we all think she says, "Oh, just this really cute little thing. I'm like Doris Day, modern time." And actually, she calculatingly went after him.
But maybe for very good reason. From what I'm told, for very good reason.
Yes, the very good reason was searing and naked ambition.
No, I don't think it's that. I think it's that time and time again we see a man does something wrong and a woman takes the fall or gets the blame.
And she wasn't prepared to do that.
And I think she's smart.
She saw what was potentially coming down the road, and she made a decision. And maybe this actually makes her a powerful woman that we should respect. She decided, I'm not going to have my career dragged down by this bloke.
Look, she was riven and driven by ambition. Let's just see how this plays out, OK? I'm not going to say anything untoward. I'm not going to step over any markers here. All I can see from her and what I know from what's happened is that she is like the Rishi Sunak of daytime TV. And I bet you anything, her next line on TV will be very sharp knives.
Well, but then you get that with all ambitious people.
Yeah, what's wrong with being ambitious?
I'll tell you what I didn't like. I watched the programme when they came on and tried to be friendly, and I thought, oh, God, you know, this isn't going to work. And the other thing, which
it was obvious
people
they hated each other by the end.
Yeah, it was. Well, I just thought, this isn't.
But if
people can see it.
What I don't get in this is if you've been friends for 20 years, right, and you've been mates, you holiday together, you spend Christmases together, you may fall out, but.
Yeah, but
a good person does not betray.
No, because if somebody's going to tank your career, if you have worked, and she has worked incredibly hard.
Oh, yeah,
she's a 42-year-old woman still on breakfast television. That is not easy.
Rebecca, may I say that I think friendship is more important than a career?
Really?
But this has been...
I don't know.
Amanda, this has been a four-year fallout. This has been a four-year fallout. She saw what was coming. She saw the way that he treated other people. And finally, she decided, I am not prepared to stand by and watch that rubbish go on. And I praise her for that.
Frosty Holly and the way she treated women on that show. OK, they've been...
Oh, yeah, she's icy. She's not a friend.
She is let's not be painting her as a saint.
But also...
You don't have to be nice.
But
isn't this also... It's another piece of...
I like it.
It's high politics, though, isn't it? And at Westminster, the old thing is, you don't have friends in politics, you can have allies.
Yes, indeed.
Are we allies?
And you certainly...
We're allies and we're close
certainly
friends.
cannot have friends, believe me, working at ITV Daytime. Do you know what? I've worked in some of the toughest newsrooms in the world, News of the World, The Sun. Nowhere is full of more backstabbers or more hateful people than ITV Daytime.
But we're friends, right?
But here...
genuinely, everyone is actually mates.
Rebecca, we're evening.
We're best friends.